Your black grandmother said things that made absolutely no sense when you were a child. You smell yourself. What did that even mean? You were not smelling yourself, you were just existing. I'm going to knock you into next week. Physically impossible, and you knew it even as a kid. Do I look like Boo Boo the Fool? You had no idea who Boo Boo the Fool was, or why your grandmother was asking if she looked like them. Fix your face before I fix it for you. Your face was not broken. What needed fixing? Black grandmothers spoke in phrases that seemed like random collections of words, statements that made no logical sense, threats that defied physics and reality, questions that had no clear answers, and black children just accepted these sayings without understanding them. Because you did not question grandmother, you did not ask for clarification. You just tried to figure out from context what response was expected and hoped you got it right. But now you are an adult and suddenly all those confusing grandmother sayings make perfect sense. You smell yourself means you are getting too confident, too bold, acting like you are grown when you are not. Knocking you into next week means the punishment will be so severe you will lose track of time. Boo Boo the Fool is someone gullible and stupid, and grandmother definitely does not look like that, so stop trying to play her. Fix your face means change that disrespectful expression before she changes it for you with discipline. Every confusing saying your grandmother used had meaning, had purpose, communicated specific messages in cultural shorthand that black children were supposed to understand through exposure and context rather than explanation. And if you watch all 10 of these grandmother sayings and finally understand what they actually meant, hit that like button and share in the comments. Which saying confused you most as a child, or which one you find yourself saying to your own kids now? Because documenting these cultural phrases is how we preserve the specific language of black grandmothers and honor the wisdom they were communicating even when we were too young to understand. Today, we are examining 10 sayings that black grandmothers use constantly, understanding what each one actually meant, why it made no sense to children, and recognizing that these phrases were efficient communication that said volumes in just a few words to anyone who understood the culture. First, when your black grandmother said you smell yourself, she was not talking about actual body odor or suggesting you needed a bath. She was calling out confidence that had crossed into arrogance, boldness that had become disrespect. Black children heard you smell yourself and were genuinely confused because they were not smelling themselves, had no idea what their grandmother was talking about, could not connect the words to any obvious meaning. The phrase appeared when black children started acting too grown, talking back, showing attitude, behaving as if they were equals to adults rather than children who needed to stay in their lane. You smell yourself meant you think you are something special. You are getting too big for your britches. You are forgetting your place in the family hierarchy. The saying was a check, a verbal correction that told black children they were approaching a line they should not cross. Black grandmothers used you smell yourself to address behavior before it required more serious intervention, leaving children one warning to adjust their attitude. The confusion was intentional in some ways, the weird phrasing making children stop and think, making the correction memorable even if the meaning was not immediately clear. Black children learned through context that you smell yourself meant dial it back, show some respect, remember who you are talking to. As adults, black people recognize you smell yourself as brilliant, efficient communication. For words that conveyed you were acting inappropriately and need to check yourself before I check you, all without lengthy explanation or discussion. Second, when your black grandmother said, I'm going to knock you into next week, she was not claiming literal ability to time travel punch you into the future. She was promising punishment so severe that time would lose meaning. Black children heard this threat and knew it was physically impossible, but also knew their grandmother was dead serious about consequences. The phrase appeared when black children had done something particularly wrong, when regular discipline would not be sufficient, when grandmother wanted to communicate the severity of what was coming. Knocking you into next week meant the punishment would be memorable, would be significant enough, that you would remember it for a long time, would be severe enough, that it would feel like days had passed even if it was just one incident. Black grandmothers used exaggerated, impossible threats because the impossibility itself communicated how serious they were. A realistic threat like I'm going to spank you was normal and expected. An impossible threat like knocking you into next week meant this was not normal discipline. This was exceptional consequences for exceptional misbehavior. Black children did not understand the time travel mechanics, but they understood the message underneath, which was you have really messed up and what is coming is going to be worse than usual. As adults, black people appreciate the creativity of the threat, the way impossible language communicated real severity. The efficiency of conveying just how much trouble you were in through one ridiculous sentence. Third, when your black grandmother asked, "Do I look like Boo-Boo the Fool?" She was not requesting fashion feedback or asking about her resemblance to some clown character. She was rhetorically establishing that she was not stupid and you should not treat her as if she was. Black children heard this question and had no idea who Boo-Boo the Fool was, had never met this person, could not understand why their grandmother was asking about looking like them. The phrase appeared when black children tried to lie, tried to manipulate, tried to get away with something, tried to play their grandmother for stupid. "Do I look like Boo-Boo the Fool? Men, I know what you are doing. I am not falling for your nonsense. You must think I am an idiot if you thought that would work on me." Boo-Boo the Fool was a cultural reference to someone gullible and easily fooled, though black children rarely learned this through explanation. The question was rhetorical because of course grandmother did not look like Boo-Boo the Fool. Obviously she was too smart to be played. Clearly she saw through whatever scheme you had attempted. Black grandmothers used this phrase to call out manipulation attempts, to establish their intelligence and awareness, to let children know that trying to fool grandmother was not going to work. Black children learned through repeated exposure that "Do I look like Boo-Boo the Fool?" meant your lie or scheme had been detected and you should stop immediately. As adults, black people understand the phrase as effective boundary setting, a way to shut down manipulation without lengthy discussion about why lying was wrong. Fourth, when your black grandmother said, "Fix your face before I fix it for you," she was not offering cosmetic surgery or concerned about your actual facial features. She was demanding you change the disrespectful expression you were making. Black children heard, "Fix your face," and were confused because their face was not broken, was attached correctly, was functioning normally. The phrase appeared when black children made faces that communicated disrespect, when they rolled their eyes, when they sucked their teeth, when they made expressions that challenged authority or showed attitude. Fix your face meant wipe that look off your face. Change your expression to something respectful. Stop communicating disrespect through facial expressions. The threat "before I fix it for you" meant if you do not change your expression voluntarily, I will change it for you through discipline that will definitely alter how your face looks. Black grandmothers were expert at reading faces, at seeing disrespect in subtle expressions, at catching eye rolls and attitude before children thought they had been noticed. Fix your face addressed visual disrespect that might not have included words, but was disrespectful nonetheless. Black children learned that certain facial expressions were forbidden in the presence of grandmother, that your face could get you in trouble as much as your words or actions. As adults, black people recognize "fix your face" as addressing the nonverbal communication of children, the way kids showed attitude through expressions even when they were not saying disrespectful things out loud. Fifth, when your black grandmother said "You're too grown," she was not commenting on your height or physical development. She was criticizing behavior that exceeded what was appropriate for your age and status as a child. Black children heard "You're too grown" when they acted like adults, when they inserted themselves into adult conversations, when they had opinions on adult matters, when they behaved as if they had adult authority or knowledge. The phrase meant you are acting above your station. You are behaving as if you are an adult when you are still a child. You need to remember your place. Black grandmothers used "You're too grown" to enforce generational boundaries, to remind children that adult business was not child business, to maintain a hierarchy that required children to respect adult authority. "You're too grown" appeared when black children were too bold in their opinions, too familiar in how they addressed adults, too involved in matters that were not their concern. The criticism was not about actual age or maturity, but about behavior that violated the expected child role. Black children who were told "You're too grown" learned to pull back, to act more childlike, to stop inserting themselves into adult spaces. As adults, black people understand "You're too grown" as maintaining necessary boundaries between children and adults, as teaching children to respect the difference between their role and the role of grown people. Sixth, when your black grandmother said "Don't make me come over there," she was not discussing her location or making travel plans. She was issuing a final warning that if behavior did not change immediately, she would get up and deliver consequences in person. Black children heard "Do make me come over there" and knew exactly what it meant. Even if the literal words were confusing, the phrase was a last chance warning, the final opportunity to correct behavior before grandmother stopped warning and started acting. "Don't make me come over there" meant I'm giving you the chance to fix this yourself. But if I have to get up and come to where you are, you will regret it. Black grandmothers often issued this warning from a seated position, from across the room, from another part of the house. And the threat was effective because black children knew that grandmother coming over there meant immediate serious consequences. The effectiveness of the phrase came from its use as a final warning, as the last thing said before action replaced words. Black children who ignored "do make me come over there" learned quickly not to make that mistake again, because grandmother coming over there was always worse than just stopping the behavior when first warned. As adults, black people appreciate the efficiency of the phrase, the way it gave children one last chance while making absolutely clear that the opportunity would not be repeated. 7th, when your black grandmother said, "I'm not one of your little friends," she was establishing that she was not a peer, but an authority figure who required different treatment than friends received. Black children heard this when they spoke to grandmother with the same tone or casualness they used with friends. When they forgot that grandmother was not someone they could joke around with freely, the phrase meant remember who you are talking to, adjust your tone and respect level. "I am your grandmother, not your buddy. I am not one of your little friends" appeared when black children crossed the line from appropriate child to adult communication into peer-level familiarity that was disrespectful. Black grandmothers used this phrase to reestablish boundaries, to remind children of the generational hierarchy, to demand the respect owed to elders. The saying addressed tone of voice, level of familiarity, types of jokes or comments that might be fine with friends but were inappropriate with grandmother. Black children learning, "I'm not one of your little friends" learned to code switch, to talk differently to grandmother than to peers, to maintain respect in how they addressed elders. As adults, black people understand this as teaching appropriate social behavior, as maintaining cultural values about respect for elders, as establishing that different relationships require different communication styles. 8th, when your black grandmother said the devil is a liar, she was not making a general theological statement about Satan's character. She was rejecting something specific, denying a negative outcome, refusing to accept something bad. Black children heard the devil is a liar and were confused about why grandmother was suddenly talking about the devil when the conversation had been about something else entirely. The phrase appeared when someone said something negative, when bad news was delivered, when circumstances seemed discouraging. The devil is a liar meant I reject that negative thing. I do not accept that outcome. I refuse to believe the worst will happen. Black grandmothers used this phrase as spiritual resistance, as verbal rejection of negativity, as refusal to accept defeat or bad outcomes. The saying reflected deep faith that evil would not prevail, that negative predictions were lies from the devil, that speaking against negativity had power. Black children learned that the devil is a liar was how grandmother fought back against bad news or negative circumstances, how she maintained hope and faith despite difficulties. As adults, black people recognize this as spiritual warfare language, as the way black grandmothers used faith as a weapon against negativity and discouragement. 9th, when your black grandmother asked, "You got McDonald's money," she was not inquiring about your personal finances or whether you had saved allowance for fast food. She was rhetorically establishing that you did not have money and therefore the discussion about getting McDonald's was over. Black children heard this question and might try to answer yes, thinking grandmother was genuinely asking only to learn that whether you had money or not did not matter, because the real message was we are not getting McDonald's. "You got McDonald's money" was rhetorical closure disguised as a question, a way to end the conversation about getting fast food without just saying no. The phrase shifted responsibility from grandmother's decision or budget to whether the child had money, even though grandmother would not have taken your money from McDonald's anyway. Black grandmothers used this rhetorical question to end begging and negotiations, to stop the McDonald's discussion efficiently without lengthy explanations about budgets. Black children learning this phrase learned to recognize rhetorical questions, to understand when grandmother was not actually asking but telling. As adults, black people appreciate the strategy of using a question to end a conversation. The way "you got McDonald's money" stopped the begging without requiring grandmother to explain or justify her decision. 10th, when your black grandmother said, "I brought you into this world and I can take you out," she was not threatening murder or claiming legal right to kill her grandchildren. She was asserting absolute authority based on the biological reality of having given birth. The saying applied to the grandmother anyway as family elder, an authority figure. The phrase meant I have complete authority over you. My power over your life is total. You exist because I allow it. I brought you into this world was ultimate authority assertion, claiming power over life itself, positioning the speaker as godlike in their control. Black grandmothers used this phrase when children questioned their authority, when kids asked why they had to do something, when the response needed to be conversation ending rather than conversation continuing. The exaggerated claim of life and death power communicated that this was not a democracy, that children did not get to negotiate or debate. That grandmother's word was final because her authority was absolute. Black children did not believe grandmother would actually kill them, but understood the phrase meant stop questioning me. My authority is not up for debate. You will do what I say because I say it. As adults, Black people recognized this as the nuclear option of authority assertions, the phrase that ended all discussion and established that further questions or challenges would not be tolerated. These 10 sayings that Black grandmothers used constantly and that confused Black children completely all share common characteristics that made them effective communication. Despite their confusing literal meanings, they were culturally specific, requiring knowledge of Black communication patterns and cultural references to understand fully. They were efficient, conveying complex messages in just a few words rather than requiring lengthy explanations. They were memorable, the weird confusing phrasing making them stick in memory even when meaning was unclear. They were authoritative, the confidence with which grandmother delivered these phrases making them seem inarguable even when they made no logical sense. They relied on tone and context as much as words, with the delivery and situation providing meaning that the words alone did not convey. Black children absorbed these sayings without understanding them, learning through repeated exposure what responses were appropriate, gradually figuring out meanings through context and consequences. The confusion was part of the education, forcing children to pay attention to more than just words, teaching them to read tone and situation and cultural context. Black grandmothers did not explain these phrases because explanation was not necessary. It would have undermined their effectiveness. The sayings worked precisely because they were accepted, without question, because children responded to them based on tone and authority rather than comprehension. As adults, Black people finally understand both the meanings and the strategies behind these confusing phrases, recognizing them as sophisticated communication that accomplished multiple goals simultaneously. These sayings set boundaries, established authority, called out misbehavior, ended negotiations, and communicated cultural values, all while maintaining the mystique of grandmother wisdom that children could not fully penetrate or question. Preserving these phrases through documentation matters because they represent linguistic creativity, cultural knowledge, and communication efficiency that younger generations might not experience the same way. Black grandmothers who spoke this language are passing away, and with them the full context and delivery that made these phrases so effective. Recording them, explaining them, understanding them ensures that this specific form of Black cultural communication survives, that future generations can appreciate the wisdom and strategy embedded in phrases that seemed like nonsense to the children who first heard them, but make perfect sense to the adults those children became.